Okay, so part one is your grief signature. Every person has a unique grief signature, a pattern of thoughts, feelings, and behaviors that emerge in the face of loss. This is a chance to map your own. Think about a significant loss you have experienced and describe your process. So, some steps to this you can think about are: what does your grief look and feel like? What are your personal pitfalls or coping mechanisms? Who were your grief role models? And how does your signature compare to the official stories of grief?
Okay, what's the first question?
Uh, think about a significant loss you've experienced and describe your process.
Okay, I'll give you a compare and contrast.
Okay.
So when I was a kid, I was about 7 or 8, and we lost my uncle, my mom's brother. That was very sudden.
Is he the one that choked on the steak?
Yes, he choked to death on a piece of steak, home alone, didn't know how to give himself the Heimlich maneuver himself. So that was shocking. Like, nobody expected that.
Yeah.
We had seen him the day before, or I think I had seen him the day before. His mother and father had seen him the day, or like earlier in the day. And so it was just very shocking. He was only 31 and not married, no children or anything like that. So, accepting that was like, what? I mean, it was just really just hard to believe because it was very sudden, it was very unexpected. It was, a pretty like tragic way to go.
Yeah.
When in theory it was preventable had he known how to do the Heimlich maneuver on himself. But I was like 8. And so, I didn't have the same understanding of life, relationships. Obviously, the relationship of a parent losing a child, or a sibling losing a brother losing a sister, or vice versa, children losing parents, those types of things. So that was vastly different than, let's say, you fast forward when my grandmother passed away, which was my uncle's mother, passed away. She'd lived 95 years, almost 96, long, full life, not unexpected. Every day, at some point, if you're not smart enough to recognize it at, 10 or 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 or 60 or 70, at some point, you have to recognize every day is a gift, regardless of your age. But, sometimes we cross over thresholds in chronological age that it seems real apparent that, that next day or getting that day was really truly a gift. And because my grandmother was 95, obviously just her given age, but her health was overall really good except for Alzheimer's. So to see that person, to see someone of that age, obviously, since I had known her almost 50 years, since I'm rapidly approaching 50, I had seen her age, seen that deterioration, and seen what the disease of Alzheimer's was doing. And so, to say that I was shocked, no, not shocked at all. Nothing we could have done, nothing that she could have done. So just the much different, just a much different, two very different experiences, but ultimately, the result was the same. Death, it's final. So, okay, what's the next question?
So what do you think your grief actually looks and feels like? Are you someone who becomes extremely emotional? Do you feel numb and detached? Do you withdraw from others or seek constant company? Describe the physical, emotional, and behavioral reality of your grief.
I don't know.
But also remember, it doesn't just have to be loss in the sense of death.
Like no. Lose a friend, like a loss of a friendship. A pet. change. I mean, a dramatic change. Losing a
I
job.
for me, looking back, like, I absolutely grieved every time we moved. Like,
Sure.
there was absolutely a feeling of loss attached to every single one of those moves. But I didn't realize that at the time. I didn't know that's what that was. So, like, things like that. Just changing stages in life, like maybe marriage, having kids.
I am not, I mean, I don't think I'm overly emotional. I'm a problem solver, so I kind of just work the problem and try to find, a solution. I mean, I'm probably not a great listener in that regard. I'm probably a lot more like my dad. My dad is the fixer.
Yeah.
And my mom is the listener.
Mm-hmm.
But and I'm probably more like him, more of a fixer. And I mean, I just try to work the problem. I mean, with a death, I mean, because this is a death and dying class, I mean, with death, I think you have to give yourself the space to just figure that out.
But the question is about you.
No, I know, but that's what I'm saying. Like, I think with death, I mean, I give myself the space to figure that out. I don't know that in the immediacy, quit playing with your hair. I don't know if in the immediacy, I'll say that I don't think that my immediate knee-jerk reaction is necessarily the only one that I would have. I mean, obviously in the space of using my uncle as an example, I was a kid and I remember it very vividly, and it really affected our Thanksgiving because he passed away at the beginning of November, and it really affected the tone of my Christmas, and I was the only child in the family at that time. So like, I have those memories, and I'm sure I probably didn't give people the space they needed, because I had these expectations of what these holidays and these experiences should look like. But in the example of my grandmother, obviously being much older and all of that, it's my grandmother, but it's my mother's mother. So just trying to be more as supportive as I can of her. So, next question.
What are your personal pitfalls or coping mechanisms? Like, do you do anything that probably could be...
I do not have destructive behavior. There's no pitfalls like that. I'm not going to be driven to drink.
Yeah.
I'm not going to...
binge eating. Go on a drive.
No. I don't feel like I have to go, jump out of a plane. No, I don't have destructive behaviors in that regard. So, nothing there.
Do you have any grief role models? We learn by watching others. Did you... Not just blurring. Did you model your response after a parent or character in a movie, or did you forge your own path in reaction against what you saw?
Well, not after a character in a movie. For sure.
People had that answer in class.
Well, I'm sure they did. And if you haven't had any experience with loss, whether it be death or, like you said, moving, or the loss of like a friendship or something like that. And there are people in the world that haven't experienced a lot of that. We are not those people, but I'm certainly not. I mean, I had a lot of people as a child. I went to a lot of funerals. It's just kind of, I guess, the cycle of life at that time. I mean, I lost my uncle. I lost some great uncles. My grandmother lost her brother. My grandfather lost his two brothers. My great grandmother passed away when I was in college. So, I mean, I had a lot of experience with like loss in the sense of like death and dying. So, but I do feel like everybody in my immediate orbit, I feel like has always handled it very, I mean, I don't know what's appropriate. It's probably the wrong word to use, but very maturely. I don't have examples of siblings arguing over estates or spouses, arguing over, final wishes. I just don't have any examples of that in my life. Um, everybody's always, at least what I know of all of those situations.
Yeah.
Everybody has just wanted to honor the wishes of the person that passed away and the life they led, and do with their estate what they wanted done with it. And I just don't have any terrible stories, or I don't know. I mean, I don't have anybody that went off the deep end. And so I guess to that extent, then yes, I mean, those would be examples. Family members who had, when we had lost other people. But I don't do destructive behavior anyway.
Yeah.
I'm a very even-keeled person. I don't really have much extreme, and I certainly don't have extreme often. So no, I mean, again, I guess just family examples of how other people in my family have handled themselves.
Yeah.
And the loss of the person that passed. So.
How do you think your signature grief compares to the official stories of grief? Does your experience align with or defy popular models like the 5 stages? Can you see elements of what Dr. Bonanno, which is the George guy from earlier, calls resilience or coping ugly in your own process? Do you know what coping ugly is?
I don't know what coping ugly is. I would think it involved nasty behaviors.
No, it's just, we see the 5 stages of grief are, like in the box earlier,
yeah.
Well, it's just very linear and it's very clean. Mm-hmm. Like you move from one stage to the next. You don't go backwards. It's only forwards, and once you reach acceptance, that's the end. Coping ugly is the more natural version and the more modern version of that. Where you can be sad.
Today I'm good, but tomorrow.
Yeah, and you may do things that people think are weird, like the continuing bonds thing. Like, a lot of people think that's not normal, or like maybe you one day push the person out of your mind and pretend they're not dead, and then the next day you acknowledge the loss. Like, it's just
So is the question, do I think people grieve linearly, or do I think they grieve dirty?
No. How do you think your way of grieving, do you think it aligns with what we see in pop culture? I think it's people crashing out.
I think it's, well, not like that, no, but I think it's dirty. I mean, based on ugly, yeah. Based on what you said, I think it's ugly, because I just don't think it's okay. It's been 2 weeks and I must move from anger to no. I mean, I think people have good days and they have bad days. I just don't believe that it's like you can't go back. I think that there's probably, truthfully, a combination of both. I think we probably move through the process like the woman you said, whoever founded that, Kubler-Ross. I think we probably move through the process in that way, but I think we probably do it ugly. I mean, really.
Yeah. Part 2 of it is,
I mean, think of it. It's kind of like an alcoholic, right? Like every day is a choice, right? To be sober, and the likelihood that you slip up, is, I mean, if you're an addict, you're an addict. Like, that doesn't, just because you're choosing not to use drugs or alcohol does not mean you're not an addict anymore. Yeah. You're still an addict. You're making a choice to not engage in that addictive behavior, but you could slip.
Yeah.
But, does that mean you slip forever? No. You should, hopefully, God willing, get back on track. So I think we probably move through Kubler-Ross's things in an ugly way.
Second part of it is the judgment of grief. We not only grieve, but we're also judged for how we grieve. The social pressure can lead to what is known as disenfranchised grief, which is grief that is dismissed, minimized, or invalidated by society because it doesn't fit the expected norms. And examples of this are like grieving a pet, or grieving an ex-partner, or not showing enough emotion in general. Have you ever felt like your grief was judged or misunderstood? Is the first question.
In my case, no. But again, I don't engage in extreme behavior.
Yeah.
But I firmly believe that the world does judge people. And you see this, I think, not social media, but just whatever, media in general. They'll judge, like, let's say some, pretty young thing marries some rich old guy. The idea, I mean, right, no one's even dead, but you're making judgments that she's a gold digger and, then he dies and it's like, and now she can live it up with all of his fortunes, things like that. Or somebody who maybe they were married to someone and their spouse really liked their hair long. But they didn't like it long. They just kept it long for their spouse. So, the spouse passes away and then they, cut their hair. Well, but your hair was always so long. Like, are you okay? You cut your hair.
Yeah.
Or you got rid of their stuff too fast. You sold their car and you got rid of their clothes or things like that. Yes, I think people judge. And I don't think it's right, but I think people judge.
Have you ever judged someone else for their grief? Reflect on a time when you've witnessed someone else's loss and found yourself thinking that they were not grieving enough or being too dramatic or moving on too quickly. What expectations were you placing on them, and where do you think those expectations came from?
Well, I don't have a single example. I mean, I just really don't that comes to mind. But I'm sure I'm human, and I'm sure I've judged people. But I, unfortunately, for your sake of your paper, do not have a specific example.
Well, I mean, that's fine.
Yeah, but I mean, I think I'd be lying if I said I hadn't judged. Whether or not I said anything or did anything about it,
yeah,
likely no. But in my mind, sure.
Yeah.
I'm not perfect.
Based on your personal experiences and your reflections, what do you believe it truly means to grieve properly? Do you believe there's such a thing? What might a more compassionate and realistic approach to others' grief and our own look like?
Well, I think if you have somebody in your life that's grieving something, as a friend or family member, I think you just have a responsibility to support them where they're at and not try to force them to move at some pace that you believe is appropriate. Because what's right for you, we know this about anything else in life. What's right for me is not going to be right for you. What's right for you is not going to be right for him or her. So I think even though it can be frustrating, I think you just kind of have to support the person where they're at in their grief and know when you can push and when you need to shut up.
Such a modern answer. It's like you sat in my class. Do you have anything you want to add?
I do not.